Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dig into the DNA of New York City, to really understand how it became this chaotic, resilient, and, this utterly unique place that it is today. Okay, let's dive right into this quote because it just perfectly captures the city's whole story. It's a place that has faced, seemingly every possible catastrophe you can imagine. The real question is, why? How does it keep coming back, a lot of times even stronger than before? To really understand New York's resilience, we have to go back in time. We need to look at the late 19th century, a period of just explosive, almost violent growth. By 1900, this was the city's population. Now, to put that in perspective, it was up from less than 1 million just 30 years earlier. It literally transformed from America's biggest city into a global metropolis almost overnight, all fueled by these huge waves of immigration and just raw industrial ambition. Now, here's a wild idea. To understand all 400 years of New York, we really only need to zoom in on one era, the Gilded Age. That's Mark Twain's famous term for the period, and it perfectly captures the city's defining tension, this staggering, unbelievable wealth built right alongside the most crushing poverty. This slide really just lays out the two New Yorks. On one side, you've got the palaces of the Vanderbilts and the Astors on Fifth Avenue. And on the other, the tenements of the Lower East Side, just a few blocks away, but it was a completely different universe. It was the most densely populated place on the entire planet. This was how much it cost to build William Vanderbilt's mansion on Fifth Avenue back in the 1880s. A fortune that was really meant to rival European royalty. So just hold that number in your head for a second. Because this, less than $500, was the average yearly salary for the workers who actually built the city. The gap was just staggering. By 1890, the richest 1% of Americans owned more wealth than the entire bottom 50% combined. So, a reformer and photographer named Jacob Riis, he's the one who really pulled back the curtain on this reality in his book, How the Other Half Lives. He showed a world of darkness, of disease, of desperation that was hidden just out of sight from the wealthy. A world where tuberculosis, the White Plague, just thrived in the stale air of these windowless rooms. But this era wasn't just about social tension. It was also a time of just incredible technological ambition. But as we're going to see, that progress, that feeling of unstoppable modernity, it came at a staggering human cost. It was the longest suspension bridge in the world, a true engineering marvel. And the story behind it is just as incredible. After its designer died, his son, Washington Roebling, took over. But he was paralyzed by decompression sickness. So he supervised the final years of construction from his bedroom window, watching through a telescope, while his wife, Emily, carried his instructions to the site every single day. But for hundreds of thousands of people, mostly immigrant women and girls, the city's industry meant working in these brutal sweatshop conditions. To earn enough to even survive, they pushed themselves to exhaustion, paid by the piece, not by the hour. It was a reality that would lead to one of the city's greatest tragedies. The story of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in 1911, it just unfolds like a complete nightmare. The owners locked the doors from the outside. It was actually a common practice to keep workers from taking unauthorized breaks or stealing scraps of fabric. So when the fire started, they were trapped. 146 people, mostly young immigrant women and girls, died. They were trapped inside this burning building, and many of them actually jumped from the 9th floor windows to their deaths on the pavement below. So the crucial point here is that even the city's progress, its industry, it was all built on a foundation of tragedy. And this is where that pattern starts to show itself. Catastrophe becoming a catalyst. It's fundamental to the city's story. The Great Blizzard of 1888 buried the city under 20-foot snowdrifts. It shut down all the elevated trains, it collapsed the telegraph lines. The result? Planners realized they had to move infrastructure underground, and that led directly to the creation of the subway system. So the key takeaway here is that the Gilded Age wasn't some kind of anomaly. It was the moment the city's permanent DNA, its blueprint for conflict and reinvention, was basically set in stone. And this blueprint, it just appears again and again all throughout the city's history. These aren't just isolated events. They are recurring themes that define what New York is, from its earliest days right up to the modern era. This slide really connects all the dots. It shows you how these patterns just keep repeating. The Gilded Age inequality between the palaces and the tenements? Well, we see that again in the 1980s Wall Street boom. The wave of immigration through Ellis Island, that just mirrors the city's very beginnings, when there were 18 different languages spoken in New Amsterdam. And that cycle of crisis and rebirth, it's not just about a blizzard leading to a subway. It's about the city going bankrupt in the 1970s, and then out of the ashes of the burning Bronx, hip-hop is born.
And this brings us right to the core idea. The city's relentless pressure, its constant churn of people and ideas, its endless conflict. This isn't a flaw in the system. It's the very engine of its survival and its creativity.
So ultimately, this whole explainer shows that the very forces that seem to threaten New York, the inequality, the disaster, the conflict, they're the same exact ones that constantly force it to rebuild, to adapt, and to become something totally new. It's a city forged in crisis, and that leaves us with one last thought to consider.